I'm gonna show you 5 tips to avoid tilting in Valorant. My name is Buster, and on this channel I make educational Valorant content, so if you want to improve at the game, start by hitting subscribe and pressing the bell icon so you don't miss out when I got new videos for you guys. We all tilt sometimes, and that's totally normal, but doing these 5 things will reduce the amount of tilting you experience and help you see what's causing the tilt to improve and hopefully make you a calmer and better player. So without further ado, let's get right into this. My number 1 tip is to mute toxic players. This feature is built into the game, so why not utilize it? It's very simple to do and it really helps out. If a teammate keeps complaining about everything and everyone in the game, then simply press mute and move on. There's no point in listening to them, as that will just bring you down and make you even more tilted. You never want to fight back with toxic teammates. They're usually really stubborn and that just makes the whole situation worse. And you'll end up moving on to the next game mad as well, so just mute them, take a deep breath and move on. Also to mention that the team spirit will just go down, so even if you had someone mad, you could have probably resolved it, but instead you choose to fight back, and that just makes the fight go on even more, and everyone in the team gets negatively affected. Tip number 2 is to switch up your playstyle. In my experience, dying is probably the biggest contributing factor to tilt. Getting destroyed in every fight you take can be super frustrating, so switching up your playstyle to be more passive and defensive when you're tilt might be the way to go. This will allow you to choose which duels you want to take and not die as fast and frequently. Also want to mention that usually when you're tilt you push even more, so just taking it passively and actually thinking about the duels you take and how you play the game will usually end up in a better result for you as well. Don't bait your teammates just because you want to play it more passively, but just stay away from pushing or taking risky duels and play it calmly. Both for the mental sake and because you're probably not playing your best when you're tilted. So just let someone else take the risky duels, unless you're an agent like Jet or Reyna, but then you should still probably think about not pushing as much as you usually do. The same goes for taking hard fights or shots. Instead of trying to peek top mid and one-shot someone and just miss, you could just hold an angle from where the enemy is coming from and be sure to kill them when they push into your crosshair. This might result in a bit fewer kills than if you'd push and win those duels, but think realistically. Are you really gonna hit most of those risky shots, especially when you're tilted? I wouldn't think so. Also, just looking at it in a positive way and making sure you contribute to the team in any way you can will help. This could be, for example, dropping a teammate, flashing for a teammate, or smoking for your teammates. At least when you do that, you feel like you're helping your team in some way instead of just dying and tilting. Third tip is to actually look at what you're doing wrong. Since we just went over that dying is one of the biggest reasons you get tilt combined with losing, instead of just dying and trying to look at it positively, which you can still do, don't get me wrong, and I'll get into that a bit more later. You should also think and analyze what you're actually doing and that's causing you to die or lose. Are you pushing when you have the man advantage? Are you not using your abilities when you could profit from them? Are you buying the wrong things? There are a ton of factors that could cause you to play poorly and in return tilt. We can't go over them all today, but try thinking about what you're doing and correct the mistakes you think you could be making. The 4th piece of advice I got for you guys is to stop shifting blame. Now I did this a lot when I was new to FPS games and just started to play CSGO, for example, and even in my beginning days of Valorant, but this is something that's really bad, and what I mean by this is when you die, you shouldn't complain about how the enemy did a stupid play or how your crosshair was on the head but you just missed it and that it was the game's fault. Instead, look at your own mistakes like we went over. Shifting blame upon other players is the worst thing you can do, and that will most times trigger your teammate or enemy that you're blaming, and they'll get mad at you, which will just start a fight. And this goes back to my first tip about muting toxic people. You don't want to be the one starting fights when you're already tilted, or even when you're not tilted. Arguing with other players about stupid stuff that'll get you nowhere is just dumb. If someone's actually doing something that's hurting the team and the outcome of the game, then maybe try to give them some advice on what they could do instead. But remember, be real careful when you're doing that, since a lot of people get annoyed when people tell them what to do, which is very understandable to be honest. Shifting blame will also make sure that you never actually learn yourself what's causing you to play bad too. If you always come up with new excuses when you die or lose a game, then you'll have a really hard time improving and actually getting better at the game. The 5th and final tip I got for you guys is to stay positive. Now that you've done all these things, you gotta stay positive. Realize that sometimes people are just better than you and there isn't a lot you can do about it. They aren't always cheating or very lucky, they can simply be more skilled than you. Learning to accept that will allow you to focus on what you're doing wrong and in return help you improve and stop getting so tilted over any little setback you face. Just taking simple breaks like, I don't know, going outside for a short period of time, or maybe just stepping away from the computer, spending some time with family, friends, or whatever could be good. Now that is obviously not always an option, because you might be sitting inside, you know, wanting to play with the boys or something, which is, I mean, I get that too, but just sometimes when you're not playing your best and you're really tilted, it really just is the best option to step away from the computer for a little while and take a break, even though it could seem boring. This is something that just resets your mind, and it will always leave you coming back better and feeling more energized and ready to play. If you want to get better at Valorant, click the playlist on screen right now, and I'll see you in the next video.